Today on Off the Clock, we're going to have a lot of fun talking about reality TV, specifically Love is Blind and the lawsuits that have been filed and the analysis of employee versus independent contractor, which I promise will be fun.
Welcome to Off the Clock, the webcast of employment attorneys at Miller Johnson, where we discuss what is happening in the HR world and provide practical insight and advice.
You are very excited about this, and I could barely sleep because I know how excited you are about this episode.
Well, I mean, let's not go crazy. But yes, when I found out about all the legal action surrounding Love is Blind,
Yes.
the real story is I walked down from my office to
my office, which happens a lot.
I think I may have interrupted you in the middle of a meeting and called you out. I've never been more excited for an Off the Clock episode. Here's my idea.
Well, it combines you two worlds, like the Venn diagram of employment lawyer and Love is Blind.
I have a work-related reason to talk about this. And in fact, most people at work or my clients probably don't even realize I watch some reality TV, but it's a nice outlet. After some long and stressful days. I know a lot of you do too. It's nothing to be ashamed about. And you, Sarah, just so everyone knows, you don't watch any of these.
I don't.
Right?
They just haven't entered my world. I don't. It's
until
not
today.
As if I have, yes, until this moment. It's not as if I have any bias against these shows. But no, I have not seen Love is Blind. So this is going to be fun because you're going to be telling me not only about the legal claims, but also about the show.
Yeah, well, why don't we start there? Because I bet there's a lot of other people who might not have seen Love is Blind, as hard as that is to believe. So let me just explain it as best I can and as neutrally as I can.
Okay.
The show refers to itself as a social experiment. Okay. And what they do is they pick a different city for each season. Okay. And all the contestants, an equal number of men and women. This is a very cisgendered, straight.
I was going to say, so I assume it assumes a heterosexual relationship.
Yeah,
got it.
Yes, okay. So you have all these single people who have been screened and vetted and interviewed, etc. And they all come to a production site where for a period of weeks, they, quote unquote, date each other without ever seeing each other. They sit in things that are called pods, which are small rooms with beverages, and sometimes there's food in there and a couch and whatever. Obviously, cameras to record everything. And across the wall of the pod is the person they're going out on a date with. And the dates are conversations, because obviously that's all you can basically do.
You can't actually go out on a date.
Right. These are the dates. They're conversations, and eventually they cross people off the list they don't want to go on another date with. And eventually, at the end, towards the end, if a couple gets engaged, and it is always the man asking the woman, I'm not sure if the show requires that, but they express their undying love for each other, they get, quote unquote, engaged, and then they can meet in person during a big reveal.
Okay, I'm picking up on the name of the show now. Yeah. They have not seen each other.
That's correct.
So there's a wall between them this entire time, and all they've done is talk through a wall.
That's the idea. Can you fall in love with someone without knowing anything about the physical, right? And then can you stay in love once you see each other?
All right.
Okay, so I hope...
What does that have to do with employment law?
This is why I was so excited that day.
This is why you're so excited. You're telling me that all of this is somehow a workplace.
So there's been employment lawsuits or an NLRB complaint, which I'll talk about in a minute, that the issue for both the lawsuits and the NLRB are the contestants employees.
Wow.
So not the production crew, all of that.
Well, of course they are.
That's
but
not
the contestants,
issue.
Are they doing a job?
The person that says, I would like to know if love is blind. I would like to find my true love. I'd like a shot at this.
Right.
Right? And they sign what has been described as a very long and oppressive contract. That's just the allegation. The contracts include non-disparagements and non-disclosure clauses with very heavy liquidated damages, which means an automatic fine.
Yeah, if you violate it.
If you violate it. And so that aspect is very important for the NLRB. So the NLRB's Minneapolis office has gone to the complaint, which means the local office believes that the contestants, the daters, are actually employees.
Wow. Okay.
So let that just sit for a minute. So under labor law, if they're actually employees, most importantly for the contestants and their lawyers in litigation, the non-disclosure agreements cannot be enforced.
At least not with regard to their pay and
Work conditions.
work conditions,
Right.
et cetera. But
Yes.
other non-disclosure agreements.
Yep.
Other parts of it could be. Okay.
Yes.
Which
So
means
that is
they
important.
can then file claims
Yes.
based on those theories.
But they can also unionize,
Yeah.
which is not unusual for actors, right? To be in union. I mean, they
Right.
are. It is a union town. LA is a union town. Hollywood is a union town.
But they're not actors,
Well,
right?
It's
or
called,
are they?
Well, it's referred to as unscripted television.
I see.
This is this type of stuff that we can talk about for hours and hours and hours. And I'm happy to if you want, like who's being genuine, who's acting, what's
Got it.
happening.
Okay.
Are they professional actors with their card, right? I don't think so. I don't think any of them are. Are they aspiring actors or performers? I think some of them probably are, which is why they want to be on this reality TV show.
Yeah.
So it's not as simple as just
Yes.
yes or no.
So the NLRB is taking the position that they are actually employees. So then what does that mean for the show? What else is happening?
From the NLRB's point of view, that means the non-disclosure provisions, much of them can't be enforced.
Right.
And it means that they can unionize,
Okay.
right? If the NLRB wins, if their
Yes.
complaint continues and there's multiple layers of hearings and appeals, et cetera. But what I would really like to talk about today.
Yes, that this is what my head is
Because-
spinning. I'm thinking pay, I'm thinking
Yes.
workplace conditions. If these people are actually
Okay.
employees and they're locked in this pod
So-
for weeks on end, that's a lot of overtime,
know,
is what I'm saying.
That's exactly what the contestants are saying. So let's go.
Okay.
Let's step away from Love is Blind for a minute, as hard as that is, and talk about how this comes up in conversations all the time with clients.
Okay.
It is part of our daily wheelhouse, talking to clients about whether an individual or group of individuals are properly classified as independent contractors versus
Yes.
employee,
Okay.
right? These
Yes.
folks, by the way, the contestants are classified as independent contractors by the show. Okay, so this is a classic independent contractor classification
Yeah.
situation, and we'll use the Love is Blind cases, right, as like a case study, so to speak, a literal case study, right,
Got
to
it.
go through what the factors are, and people can think about how would these factors apply in my workplace. And if you have an independent contractor who was misclassified as such, and really should be an employee, to your point, it opens up a lot of tax issues, right?
Benefits, pay.
Benefits issues, overtime, minimum wage, record keeping, safety conditions, all kinds of stuff, which is all included in this one lawsuit I have for our example, all of the allegations. So should we go through the facts first and then the factors,
Yeah,
the legal
please.
factors, and we'll just use it as a little test.
Okay.
Okay. So I am reading from a lawsuit, a legal complaint that was filed by contestant.
Wait, let me guess where it was filed. California.
Correct. Yes. California, under California law, but we're going to analyze it under the federal
Okay.
standard for independent contract because the California law is a little more favorable.
Oh, you don't say.
Right. But most of our listeners, some of our listeners do have to worry about California, and California just assume they're independent or they're employees.
Yeah, right.
We're going to analyze it under the NLRB standard, the DOL standard,
Right.
et cetera.
The IRS standard, et cetera.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
So Stephen Richardson filed a lawsuit on behalf of himself and as a class.
Oh, it's a collective action.
He wants not just, it's a class action because it's under California law.
Okay.
He wants it for all other Love is Blind contestants and contestants or participants of other unscripted reality TV.
Oh.
So here are his allegations written in his legal complaint. The cast arrived to the city where production would take place via airplane. Upon the cast's arrival, defendants isolated the cast and took away their ability to contact family, friends, and other persons outside of production. Now, it's not here, but I know from watching the show that their phones are taken away during the entire production until there's a proposal and that segment ends. Okay. This continued for the entire length of the cast participation in the production. Defendants also forced the cast to give up all forms of identification. Wallets, phones, cash, and cash and credit and debit cards to defendants, thus eliminating the cast's ability to leave the hotel living quarters or production set. In fact, defendants did not allow the cast to leave the premises of the hotel or studio at all unless explicitly directed to do so by defendants. To force the cast cooperation with this instruction, defendants also did not allow any of the cast members to hold a key to their hotel room to prevent them from leaving their hotel rooms. Cast members were forbidden from driving themselves to and from the production. The cast's only way to leave the hotel or production set was via the shuttles provided by defendants, who exerted full control over the times and manner that
this
the cast
is a bit of a problem
was
for an
transported
independent
to
contractor.
and from the hotel. Now, I'm going to read a few more other allegations that don't directly impact the independent contractor analysis, but I think are fascinating. Food and drinks. Defendants further controlled the cast by restricting food and drink at all hours of the day. Defendants regularly refused timely food and water to the cast while on set, restricting the availability of hydration opportunities. Think OSHA, right? And safety. Okay.
That is a safety issue.
Even at the hotel living quarters, food was restricted to the point of severe hunger. Defendants instructed the hotel staff not to provide any food to the cast, further depriving them of food outside the presence of the production teams. The only drinks the defendants regularly provided to the cast were, see if you
alcohol.
can guess. Yes, one. And there's two more.
Coffee.
Energy drinks. I'll give it to you.
Water.
No, no water. They said they were deprived
No
of
water. No water at all?
That's the allegation. I just want to be clear. That's what's
What is
written
there
here.
other than alcohol, coffee, and water?
Well, they say soft drinks because they're in
drinks.
California, but
Okay.
we would say pop.
Pop. Okay, got it. Got it.
Those are the only beverages provided: alcohol, soft drinks, energy drinks, and then they say mixers. Hydrating drinks, such as water, were strictly limited. Defendants were encouraged to consume alcohol throughout the day, which is not probably a shock if you've seen the people's behavior on the show, and were plied with an unlimited amount of alcohol without meaningful or regular access to appropriate food and water to moderate their inevitable drunkenness. So as a result of defendants encouraging the cast to perform work in a hazardous work environment,
Yeah.
while in an altered mental state, defendants failed to provide a safe and healthful place
Interesting.
of employment. So that doesn't go to the issue I want to discuss with you today, but I just thought it was fun.
This is fascinating because you and I both know that the first and almost certainly most important factor when we talk to clients about whether somebody's an independent contractor is whether the individual controls the work, right? They make the decisions about how and when work is done. And in this case, what we have is the employer essentially locking them into a space and forcing them to do the work. That is a problem. The control is a problem if you want to claim they're independent
Let me
contractors,
go back
right?
and remind, yes, and let me go back and remind everyone what the 6-factor test currently is. The test has changed under the DOL's regulations.
Right.
I feel like it's every year. It's really like every 2 or 3. And even the current test is currently being litigated. So it keeps flipping back and forth. But let's remind everyone of the 6 factors and also remind everyone that it's a totality of the circumstances. So some factors may be more relevant in some situations than others. No one factor is determinative, blah, blah, blah. Okay, here are the 6 factors that a court will look at. Opportunity for profit or loss depending on managerial skill. I don't see that here.
There is no managerial skill. Okay, go on.
Investments by the worker and the potential employer. The degree of permanence of the work relationship, the nature and degree of control, that's what you just brought up, which is going to be very important here, the extent to which the work performed is an integral part of the potential employer's business. That's going to be
kind of the whole
important here.
thing. Yep.
And skill and initiative. And no offense to the contestants. But that's probably not relevant anymore.
No, if you apply those factors here,
Yeah, let's start at
the
beginning.
only factor in favor of independent contractor relationship is the permanence one. This is a temporary relationship for this one discrete thing, right?
Yep.
To be a contestant on this show.
I completely agree
That's
with
the
you.
only
The production
factor that weighs
company,
in favor.
That's the strongest factor in their favor. But let's just go through them just as an exercise, right? And talk about each one. Opportunity for profit or loss depending on managerial skill. I'm not seeing it. They were each given a set. I've seen it referred to as a stipend.
So they all get
Right.
the same amount regardless of whether they get married.
What's fascinating is I don't know if they all get the same amount, but they get a set amount regardless of, how long each workday is,
got it.
et cetera, et cetera. And I don't think that has a lot of relevance here, to be frank. All right, second one, investments by the worker and the potential employer. So outside of the reality TV context, that would have to do with, are you buying your own equipment? Do you have your own laptop? If you're a painter, do you have your own brushes, rollers, et cetera, or is your employer providing them, right? That's the sort of thing that goes into this. In the reality TV show context, I do think it could be relevant if we're talking about clothing, hair, makeup. Do people bring their own clothes, right? Or are there stylists, right, in a wardrobe? I don't know the answer to that. That wasn't included in the complaint that I saw. But you could see where it could be relevant, right? And again, in the real world that we work with clients in all the time, we're really talking about if it's a mechanic, it would be tools, right? An office worker, electronics, et cetera. So that is a factor folks need to think about. 3, degree of permanence of the work relationship. Yeah, as you mentioned.
That's the one that weighs.
we're on the
And to be
defense
clear
side
for
here-
the audience, what that means is a less permanent relationship weighs in favor of an independent contractor relationship, whereas a relationship that, even if at will, appears intended to have that person successfully engaged so long as they're performing the job adequately with that business.
And that's often just a quick litmus test for employers, I think, that might not want to put hours and weeks into this analysis. If you have someone as an independent contractor that's been doing a decent amount of work for your organization for 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, that's a red flag.
I think
We still have
I
to
don't
look
think
at
you
the
have to get to
totality of the
6 years
circumstances.
for that to be a red flag. but
Even
yes.
after a full year, in my experience, we should. That's probably a good time to take a closer look.
Correct.
It's a totality of the circumstances, but if you want to just pick some low-hanging fruit,
Yeah.
right? Look at the folks that have been around a long time. Okay, and these folks are not supposed to be. They're supposed to be around for one season, which doesn't last that long. Next, nature and degree of control. I think this is fascinating. The way the complaint reads is clearly intended to make you think exactly what you think. My God, they controlled every minute of this person's life, right? But as far as I know, again, as a viewer and based on the legal complaints, they did not control, the production company did not control who the contestants chose to date, who they expressed their love to, who they wanted to be engaged to, if someone had to say yes when someone proposed. They didn't control any of that, and that's really the point. The rest, if I were the production company, I would argue, these insignificant control factors are to maintain the secrecy of the show, because there's a lot of people who are really into these shows. But some people that will cross lines, right? And when they find out where the production is, try to see who's on it and then dig through their personal lives, et cetera, et cetera. I think the point of all of that was to make
maybe
sure.
not the alcohol and the lack of food, but anyway, yes.
Yes, the alcohol, obvious. That wasn't, the lack of food would be a control thing, but it's hard to see how the lack of food would have been an exercise of control on how they performed their jobs. Because remember, it's control over how you perform your job that is an issue. So again, taking it out of the reality TV context and into our real lives. Again, I always like to use a painter example because it's fairly obvious and easy. If I, at Miller Johnson, a law firm, we hire a painter to paint this room, and I say I want this color, and that's it. There's no control. Although it is some control, we could argue, because I'm telling them what color to paint it. It's all a degree. If I then say I want you to roll it and not brush it, there's another element of control, right? If I say I want you to use this specific type of roller and I want you to use this stroke and I want this section of wall done every, 1 hour, right? And now I'm exerting even more. And at what point does it cross the line? It's all a spectrum, right? So what the show was exerting control over wasn't about the main purpose of the show, which was the dating and the dating behavior and how introducing the physicality of each other would impact the relationship. It was about the secrecy of the show. Does that make sense?
So but as a result, they were very much control, because the control is not just how, it's also when. And so they had great control over the when, as I understand it, which is always.
When they were working.
I understand the reason they controlled it, but it still did have an impact on controlling the when, and as a result, probably to some degree, the how. Sure. It's an interesting argument.
I mean, I read from the complaint, it was meant to generate that exact reaction. Think about now a painter in a highly controlled environment, because it has to be, like a pharmaceutical production room, for instance.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of secrecy, et cetera. So they have to use a fingerprint thing to come in and out, and they can't go in and out throughout the day, and they have to put on protective clothing, and they can only eat and drink certain things, because some types of foods.
Exactly.
But they're just there to paint. And all you did was tell them the color. Does that make them under your control as an employee? Because there's so many external controls, but not related to the thing they were
Well, according to the
brought in to
NLRB,
do.
the answer is yes.
Yes, we know what the NLRB says.
So the answer is yes.
But it's interesting. It's very interesting. And so for all of our listeners who are not in entertainment, think about what control really means. And it is a spectrum, right? Yes, because I get these questions all the time. Well, can I tell an independent contractor when I want a job completed, or is that too much control? I don't think that's too much control.
No, we can tell we can tell a painter that.
We can tell a painter when we want the job done, the color. I think you can say roll versus brush.
Yeah.
Right? But then we start getting into more.
Exactly.
All right. Factor number 5, the extent to which the work performed is an integral part of the employer's business. I mean, I think this is pretty easy for this reality TV show, right?
Right.
They are the point of the show.
They are the point of the show. And again, just for our listeners' knowledge, in case they didn't understand, if it's integral, it's more likely to mean then they're an employee and not an independent contractor.
Correct.
Right? So that's what that factor means. So that would weigh very heavily in favor of the contestants being employees and not independent contractors. They are the entire point of the business.
Right.
They're not, in fact, they're not just painting
They're
a
not
wall.
painting a law firm wall.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yep, you got it.
They're the lawyers in the law firm.
Right. Who can also be independent contractors in some situations. That's just one fact.
Yeah. Yep.
Factor number 6, skill and initiative required. So generally speaking, courts and the DOL say the higher the skill level of the person, the more likely that they may be an independent contractor.
Right.
The lesser the
sort of a
skill level
specialized.
set, yes.
It's a painter. We're hiring you because you're bringing that specialized skill.
Right. General laborer, right? Okay. Less likely to be. So that's how the factor is considered. It doesn't seem highly relevant with Love is Blind, right? Because regardless of their intentions to be performers or media stars someday, they are supposed to be in it to find love, right? And there's no skill or initiative. I don't think. Is that a skill set?
I don't know.
To be able to date and find love? Well, I'm going to say if it is, these people don't have it because they're all generally older and still single and could not find love any other way.
Yeah. There you go.
So I'm going to say that weighs in favor of employee.
I just here's to hoping that argument actually gets made in litigation.
I just have to say, I love my job. I love my clients.
They obviously do not have skill
I would love to
in
be
initiative.
in this case.
Yes. They obviously do not have skill and initiative in this area. If they did, they wouldn't have to be on the show.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. That's where I'm coming down on that.
Okay,
so it is shocking to me when I come to this conclusion, but I think the weight of it, the totality, leans in favor of them being employees. But we'll see. We'll see what the courts do if we get to a court decision and there's not a settlement. We know the NLRB thinks that, and we'll keep track of it. We'll be on top of it.
So we know now the NLRB's position is they are employees and not independent contractors.
Correct.
This has probably opened a door now for these contestants to file additional claims based on the theory that they're employees.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And we could have a lot of fun thinking of all the claims. And maybe our listeners would like to send us ideas. But there's wage and hour claims, right? I mentioned you have to pay them for all of their time. There's workplace safety concerns.
There's another one which I haven't talked about here, but someone was sexually assaulted by the person she was set up with on the show.
Yeah.
Right? What kind of responsibility does an employer have over that versus someone who is not an employer?
I'll just say, too, I think we have a lot of HR listeners right now thinking to themselves, there's just, if an entire workplace is centered around the idea that employees are supposed to hook up with each other, that just doesn't seem right. I'm guessing harassment concern, right?
I see your point.
Right, yes.
They're supposed to be finding true love. What I hope our listeners enjoyed this episode, but I also hope whoever's watching and listening, when they are faced with the situation of figuring out whether someone's an employee or an independent contractor, they can think back to this,
right,
and probably remember the factors,
right,
a little bit better because I have this real life example
awesome
to apply.